Have you ever witnessed preschoolers building a stick and leaf home around a worm? Have you ever seen them get super excited about hanging very simple pine cone bird feeders? And then even more excited when they return later to see that all of the seeds have been eaten? Have your preschoolers ever tenderly cared for a sapling or tried to reattach the stem of a broken flower? These are all small acts of kindness that preschoolers just spontaneously do on their own. But what if you could not only harness preschoolers' innate desire to bring about positive change, but also use it to help them with early learning skills at the same time? Hello, I'm Nicole Treville-Scrable, and this is Wildwood Teaching. If you listened to last week's video, I talked about 5 hot new trends to embrace for 2026. And one of those trends was project-based learning. And so today I am going to go a little bit more in depth into project-based learning, specifically service learning. So in service learning, children perform a service to better their community in some way. And then that service contributes to their own cognitive or emotional development. And the community benefits from the positive contributions from the preschoolers. And then the children benefit because they are gaining or practicing new skills that are needed to complete the project. Sometimes the project comes first, and then the children learn new skills as needed, right? As they are completing each step of the process and the project, and that need arises. So, for example, one year our apple tree really didn't produce any apples, and the children wanted to know what they could do to help the apple tree produce more apples. So we had to read some books about how trees create fruit. And when reading those books, we learned that every tree needs pollinator. And so from this arose the idea from the children that they wanted to create a butterfly garden to attract pollinators to the apple tree. So that in turn meant now we need to shift gears and figure out, first of all, what butterflies do we have at our habitat, right? So we had to take some time sitting and observing, taking notes in our nature journals, looking at guidebooks, right? Learning how to use the guidebooks, learning how to read nonfiction and gain information from nonfiction, right? And I would say when I say read, that means learning what a table of contents is, right? Learning how to look at the page numbers and find that particular page number to get to what you need, learning how to use an index, a glossary, learning how to look at captions. A lot of times when you have guidebooks, right, you are matching the picture. And then maybe you're just quickly reading a caption, right? What does this animal, what is its name? What does it eat, right? A lot of times guidebooks have maps in them. So you're learning what are some maps, right? What does our area look like on the map, right? And then we took stock of, well, what plants do we need if we want to attract more of the butterflies that are already in our area? And then you have to go through all of the steps of planting, right? And what you learn from a planting project, of how seeds germinate, of whatever math you're going to take to measure the saplings as they grow, learning about plant life cycles, learning about plant needs in terms of how much sunlight versus shade, of heat, of water. So there were all these pieces that we just added into the curriculum as our need arises, right? That's what happens when you kind of define the project first, and then add in the learning as needed to complete the project. The other way to do it is that sometimes the project stems based on what the preschoolers have learned during an investigation. So an example of this is, 1 year, a child wanted to know, right, where are all the bees? What happened to them? It's winter and I don't see any anymore. So that led to several months of us talking about animal adaptations in winter and in other seasons of the year, right? In terms of not just hibernation, but migration, in terms of different plants and animals that might grow, say, more fur, right? Heavier fur or different kinds of feathers to help them get through the colder months. Um, and then at the culmination of this unit, what the children wanted to do as their service project was to help the birds as they were coming out of winter and into spring. And so we did some different types of feeding for birds, right? Stringing berries, doing pine cone feeders, deciding where we would hang them based on where we saw birds in the area, and then creating little wreaths that included natural nesting materials for the birds, right? So kind of like a little shopping center for birds where they could come and get natural raffia, hay, lichen, moss that they could use as nest building materials. So now if you're listening to kind of the examples that we did here at Wildwood Nature School, you'll notice that none of these projects are huge and involved. And in fact, neither of these really took us into a huge, outer community. They took us into the forest community that is around our school. And really, this is how it should be. Service learning for young children needs to be young child sized, right? It doesn't take up months and months. It doesn't have to help them practice every single preschool skill. And it really should be as local as their interest, right? Their school, their home, maybe if you have a park across the street, right? This is where their interest lies. And those are the projects that are going to be the most successful. And some other types of service learning projects that include nature that might be interesting for preschoolers could be to build a bug hotel. It could be to build a garden bed or just simply to clear an area and prepare the soil for a garden. It could be to be building simple shelters, right? Like a lean-to, which I could be using today for the wind, or a den, right? They could choose to plant trees or other types of plants in, say, a denuded area of a park, field, right? They could embark on citizen science activities like tracking bee or bird activity in the area around your school. They might want to do a community art project, right? What nature-based art could they make and then bring to, say, a local library or community center just to beautify it and, make people happy for a little bit? Because remember, the goal of service learning is not just to serve, but also to learn. Young children already display a deep empathy for the natural world, and they have an absolute belief in their own ability to change the world. So tap into it, right? Help foster their confidence and pride in accomplishment, and then start them out on a lifelong commitment to service to their community. Let me know some of the things that you have done or what you plan to do this year with your preschoolers. You can add them to the comments under the video. You can connect with Wildwood Teaching on Facebook, on Instagram. You can reply to my month or my weekly newsletter that I send out. Because remember, we learn best from each other. And I would love to highlight your ideas in future newsletters. So please keep in touch. And then be sure to join me here next week for another edition of Wildwood Teaching, when I will be talking about natural swaps, ways that you can take what we traditionally do or use in preschool and just swap in natural materials. I will see you there.